Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 307th episode of Real Hawk Talk. I am Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on Twitter at HawkBlogger, and I'm joined tonight, at least at the start of the show, by Dayna O'Gorman at Dayna OG on Twitter. Dayna, just a few minutes ago, you were in kind of biblical conditions, which it sounded like crazy hail and thunder and lightning. I don't know if it has anything to do with the signings of Pharaoh and Noah and all those
Yeah,
things. But
I think that's exactly what it was. Yeah, no, Kansas City has a nasty thunderstorm going through it with literal golf ball size hail. I always thought that was kind of a myth, but we get it here, and it just was pummeling my house. But it was very noisy, so I'm sorry about that. It's over now. But yeah, I think that's the football gods letting us know that Seattle has done some stuff. I don't. Your opinion on it is one or the other, but what they've done.
we are going to talk about that very soon. I will bring in as well Jeff Simmons at Real Jeff Simmons on Twitter. Jeff and I are both battling some kind of cold, so apologize if we're muting and sniffling and coughing and whatever. But Jeff, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm good. I'm hanging in there. I don't know what I caught. Like I got some sort of bug where like last week just hit like every part of my body. This week I'm mostly fine. It's just I get like bad. I can't shake this cough. So like my lungs have been a little messed up. So if I start coughing, don't blame me.
We will not blame you. It's very nice of you to show up, and that is a good reminder for everybody that's tuning in. Please give the show a like, click subscribe, click the bell to get notified when we go live, and go to patreon.com/hawkblogger. Sign up, get immediate access to the Slack channel. We will be doing Patreon questions later in the show, and you get the chance to do it. So support the show, join the community, and there's also now YouTube memberships. And I think we've just started to get a few folks signed up for those. And we'll be doing some, private live stuff for folks on YouTube as well. So lots of great ways to support the show, and it can be as easy as clicking the like button or clicking the subscribe button. So please go ahead and do that. There's so much to get into. So let's do this for starters. Let's just recap what has happened so far. And I'm going to pull up a couple pieces today. So first of all, the Seahawks have already re-signed Leonard Williams and Noah Fant. We knew that coming in. Other things that happened as of today, there's really not much yesterday that happened, but the Seahawks signed former Seahawk George Fant, who has been a starting right tackle and sometimes a left tackle in the league. They signed Nick Harris, who has been a center and a guard, shows up as a left tackle in some snaps. I'm not sure if that's because he's played tight end and essentially an extra lineman, essentially. But Nick Harris, who also has ties back to the Seahawks offensive line coach, who was the offensive line coach at UW when Harris was there. They signed Rayshawn Jenkins, a safety from Jacksonville, who was released and had been reported to make a trip to Seattle and then to San Francisco and was scheduled to make a trip to the Packers. He chose to sign with Seahawks. They re-signed Artie Burns, cornerback Artie Burns. And then they tendered linebacker John Radigan, cornerback Mike Jackson, and gave an extension to Darrell Taylor. First, he was not tendered, so there was a lot of initial false reporting that he was an unrestricted free agent. Turns out he was actually extended and will be on the team. And I think that's it for today. Anything that you guys think that I'm missing on that list? No. Okay.
No, that's all I have.
So before we jump into, I think, the core conversation about what is the plan here, what's going on, I'd love to get Dayna just your initial reaction. Like, okay, so that we're really technically one day into free agency. Today is the official first day of free agency, even though tampering period's been the last couple of days. How do you feel?
Well, I think you guys probably know because I've been kind of vocal in our chat, but I'm a little confused. I'm a little worried. I think that some of the signings that they made I'm thrilled about the Williams keeping it. I mean, that was important to me. We talked about that before. That was hot number one on my list. I think that was great. Noah Fant's nice to keep around. I wasn't sure that was going to happen, so that's great. I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about Darrell Taylor. Dying about that. And Michael Jackson's good. He's been solid on and off, right? Whatever. Some of the additions, though, I will say this. I want to talk about Nick Harris for just a minute. So over on Our Turf Football, the other podcast that I do, Kate is one of the gals that I do that podcast with, and she has covered the Browns for 20 years. And so I asked her flat out, she goes, your people know him, he's from Washington. I said, but how is he as a pro? And she gave me a whole list of things. And let me tell you, they're a little mad he's gone. They really enjoyed having him there. But she said that he worked to bulk up to 300 pounds, but still moved really well. And that was really important. But he had a knee injury that kept him out for a whole season. And the biggest thing for her is that he only had 2 penalties all season. That was huge for her. She thought that was really important, that he was real solid. She said that he also plays fullback. He's played in a couple of different spots. And most of all, she said that he's considered a really good locker room dude, and he does well with the press. So kind of a glowing report. She wrote a lot, but I don't want to bore you guys with it. But so that made me feel better about that, although I really like Olu. I think that he could be a good center, but at least there'll be a little competition there. The addition of Pharaoh Brown, I mean, good, because we only had one tight end. So what the hell else are you supposed to do? But I still think, I look at it, I'm thrilled about George Fant. I don't know how you guys feel about George Fant. I'm so glad he's back. I liked that guy. 74 is eligible people. So I think that is fun. And he seems really excited to be back. But there's still a lot of holes. There's still a lot of question marks about what they're doing and what the plan is. And as I explained to you guys, I'm type A. I want to know what the plan is. What's the plan? And I feel a little lost with a new head coach and the new coordinators. And so I have some anxiety.
Yeah, we will talk about that. I've got some thoughts in my head about that as well. Jeff, I've been dying to hear from you, man. We haven't been able to connect as well. So like, it's great. I have a little bit better idea of where Dayna's head is on all this. Where are you?
I'm a little confused as well. I see a lot of similar patterns to how Schneider and the Seahawks have approached free agency before. And some of the things I see are being good, and some of the things I see as a little troubling. On some hand, I get, if you look at a lot of the individual moves they've made, some of them are pretty good, and some of them are the things we've discussed, like the George Fant move is something we literally handpicked a week or two ago. But I'm having trouble wrapping my head around their plan and their vision. And one of the things I've been critical about the Seahawks, really, like 2019, 2020, 2021, those were some of the worst years, I thought. It seemed like they were doing this here, this there, and I couldn't really see the vision of what they were trying to build. And like I got the idea of moving on. I thought moving on from Quandre and Jamal, Disley, I thought, okay, they're setting up for something here. They're going to put that money into the trenches. And then at first it's like, okay, maybe they're just kind of seeing what they have, kind of going in. And then it seems like they're doing a little of this from here and then a little from there. And something's missing. And there's like a gap in their offseason where like they don't have an inside linebacker. Like, if they had this whole offseason, they signed, say, Patrick Queen. It's okay. This whole thing makes sense. It's a pretty good offseason. Or if they signed a guard and I'd say, okay, they're investing in the line of scrimmage. They have Len Williams. It seems like 2019, 2020 stuff where they're picking at this, they're picking at that. I'm having trouble seeing the vision of what they're trying to do right now. On one hand, it makes sense. They're kind of a team that's good but not good enough, so maybe they want to rely on the draft to build their team. That's probably how they should be approaching it. But they also just paid $21 million for Leonard Williams. And the Noah Fant move kind of caught me off guard. So I'm still in wait-and-see mode, but I've been kind of underwhelmed. I thought there was a real opportunity for them to do a couple things, and right now it just seems like they've addressed some things but not the other. I'm more confused than anything else. I'm left kind of wondering, what is the plan?
Interesting. Well, so I'll tell you my reaction so far. It's less confused. I think I have some thoughts about why this is happening the way it's happening. couple things. First, John Schneider said Leonard Williams was a priority. They paid him a ton of money. Okay, so clearly was a priority. This notion that we all have that guard is a priority because they don't have any interior linemen. I think they look at Olu as their center that they drafted last year, and they feel ready for him to come up. So they now just have a veteran backup. Nick Harris is there, and he can compete, but they feel fine with that position, most likely. They most likely see Anthony Bradford as a guy that started a lot of games last year, and they just as soon have him start again. Even if I don't like that as a default, that's likely how they're looking at it. And so they probably do see that they've got one guard spot. But I think the indications are that the price tag for guards was at a point that they didn't like any of those players enough to spend that kind of money on them. And so the question becomes, we'll get into this in a little bit, there's a few players left. Kevin Zeitler, who was really our number one choice for them. Mine was Jonah Jackson, but overall, we talked about Kevin Zeitler. He's still available. And so Schneider has done this before where he plays the waiting game and sees if he can get somebody at his price point. And so I think the order of how these things are happening may not be exactly in the prioritized order that we've thought it would be, like descending priorities, but we might end up with the same list of moves. I think the linebacker position's probably the one where there's the biggest question mark about what the plan is going to be there. And I think that Jeff, especially because you and I talked about this a bunch, they're following a plan you and I talked about. They just might be targeting different guys. So I made the case that it was not the right thing to spend big dollars on Patrick Queen or Jordan Brooks. Fact of the matter is neither one of them got that big of a contract. Like, it wasn't a prohibitive contract. So the fact that they still didn't sign those guys means one of two things. Either one, they don't think that those are the right guys to spend that money on, or two, those guys didn't want to come here. And I think that we always talk about this in free agency. There's always this assumption, oh man, how come you didn't get that guy at that deal? You don't know. Jadeveon Clowney, Dana's favorite guy, is going to visit the Carolina Panthers where he grew up. He's living on the East Coast right now. Is that something where he really wants to move back to Seattle? Maybe, maybe not, but we have no idea. It may not even be an option. So I think there's some parts of this that we don't know. But here's my so generally I'm like, house is not on fire for me. I'm like, okay, I would rather the Seahawks underspend on free agency, undercommit on free agency than overcommit. I don't think they're in a position where they're one or two pieces away from being great. So I'm okay with where things are, to be totally honest. That said, I have this nagging feeling that's starting to build that I have that it's like the cynical voice. And I want to test this with both of you. If you look at it from a lens of John Schneider has been essentially second fiddle, which he bristles at when you bring it up, but he has not been fully in charge of personnel or coaches. And now he's getting his chance. And you think about from a GM's perspective, how do you make every move? Cap management is a bigger priority than it is for coaches. Compensatory picks is a bigger priority than it is for coaches. Belief in your draft picks is a bigger thing for GMs than it is for coaches. And I add to that you've got a first-time head coach who is under the control of John Schneider. He reports to him. He may not have the wherewithal to say, dude, no, we are not okay with these guys. We need more. Or you also get from coaches, a lot of coaches will say, oh no, I can make that guy good. Because they believe in their abilities, coaches. So I have this little nagging voice about is John not wanting to lose a 6th round or a 5th round or a 4th round compensatory pick by signing an external free agent? Is he going to wait till the comp pick deadline to sign some guys where you can sign external free agents without affecting that formula? Is he going to be over-indexing on Anthony Bradford and other guys that he drafted because he thinks Pete just didn't use them right. That's what has me a little bit concerned. And I'm going to need to see a little bit more evidence that he's not going so far down that direction. I monologued for a while. I do want to come back. I have a lot of thoughts of this notion about that they're tanking or that they're. I want to talk about that. But first, is that ramble? Does that any of that make sense to any of you?
It really does. I said in our chat today, early success often leads to an inflated ego, and I worry about that. I worried about it with Pete too, not just John, but they had such success when they had young and new and pretty and all this stuff, and it worked out so well from them. And then they turned into kind of the Seahawks that they are now. Well, I'm a little afraid with you that John now, okay, we got rid of Pete. He shanked Pete. I loved that term, by the way. Got rid of Pete, right? And he has full control. Well, I did this once. I'm going to do it again. We're going to start from scratch and we're going to have the same best team because that's what he knows. And so that worries me a little bit. I also worry, and I only worry because of the unknown of new head coach, new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator. I know they're not the first team to do this, but also then you put on top of that GM with brand new control. I worry that they start to focus too heavily on certain things. And that might be the compensatory picks because God, they seem to be holding on to those for dear life. Right. And it might be, we're going to be able to get this in the draft. And yes, this is the great draft for offensive line, right? We understand that. This is a great draft for wide receivers. What it's not a great draft for is linebackers. And it's not a great draft for, some of the pieces that we need. And so I worry that we have heard, I can't say I know John Schneider, so I don't know this for sure, but we have heard John Schneider kind of hyperfixates on things sometimes. And I worry sometimes that maybe his newfound, I hate to say power, because I think that it was a good marriage relationship between him and Pete, but that newfound independence in the new head coach might let him go even further down that road. I get it. I worry about that too.
What do you think, Jeff? Oh, you're on mute.
The comp pick thing grinds my gears. I fucking hate the idea of the comp picks. We've spent so much time San Francisco got all these comp picks. Have you guys seen who San Francisco's taken with those comp picks over the last 3 years? Have you actually looked? It's Danny Gray. Has Danny Gray ever made an NFL catch? It's that cornerback who was benched, Ambry Thomas, Jake Moody, and the safety who got benched last year, Jared Brown. That's what we're trying to live up for. The picks at the end of the fourth round in 2025. I understand why GMs love them. It's free currency. I would always rather take what I can get now as a good player. I hate the comp pick thing. It drives me crazy. Schneider used to play that game. They end up with Amara Darboh. They're like, oh, thanks. That's why we lost. But I get why GMs love it. And here's the thing that makes it a little tricky. A lot of what Brian talked about, that's exactly how Baltimore did free agency. Baltimore almost never dips into day one. They almost never. Schneider always talks about him and Ozzie Newsome are similar. They're not. But Baltimore, they wait for value. They don't spend unless they're in a dire situation. They got Derrick Henry for pretty cheap this year. They've sat mostly out of free agency. So if you're talking a lot of things Brian's talked about, that might be just first nature to McDonald. That might just be his view of, okay, this is how you're supposed to do free agency. So the thing that I'm kind of still stuck on is the thing that Schneider always talks about is you don't want to go into a draft with obvious holes.
Yeah.
And he always wants to kind of have a complete picture. They have 0 inside linebackers. It's only day 3 or whatever. They have 0 unless Drake Thomas or whatever is starting. They have no left guard. Anthony Bradford is fine as a hedge, but if you go into the draft needing the guard, and they have 1 quarterback on their roster. So I agree with what most of Brian said, and I do worry about a lot of it, but he's going against a lot of the same ways he's kind of tried to build free agency in the past. Again, there's still a long time, but
yeah,
the linebacker group is coming off the board quick. I'm glad they were able to address safety today. The player they brought in made a lot of sense. I wouldn't even be surprised if they bring in a third safety. But I'm just curious. I was just hoping for one other kind of move on the line of scrimmage. And I was hoping for, if they sign Kevin Zeitler, all of a sudden this whole offseason feels so much better.
Yeah.
It's true.
And
they're one move away. They're one move away.
Well, I think what Brian said is absolutely right. I think you're going to see Schneider rely on some of the draft picks. You're going to see he's going to be thinking, okay, my team's been held back. I can draft guys. And in a lot of cases, he's right. In a lot of these positions, like linebacker especially, that's a position historically you want out of the draft. You want guys on first contracts. You want young, fresh legs. Other position, running wide receiver right now, but the Seattle's kind of tied up there. But there's certain positions you just want to keep adding youth in the building. Safety's a position I think they're going to have to draft. They're pretty old at safety.
Are they?
Well, I guess not.
Rayshawn Jenkins is 30, but
30.
Julian Love's like 26.
But he's in the last year of his deal, and
yeah,
they need a couple rookie contracts at that spot.
Right. Someone said to me today, when I was anxietying on Twitter about this, they said it's not like the cap goes away. It's not like it expires. You don't have to use it. And it's like, yes, but the players go away. The options become much thinner. And that's what is worrying me, is the fact that at these positions that aren't strong in the draft this year, that you desperately need, and like you said, are going to be obvious holes going into the draft, the players that you want, if you wait too long, aren't going to be there.
Well, so let's I think what that person might have been referring to is that you can roll over cap space to the next year.
I knew what he meant, but I'm still worried about this year, and maybe everyone else is to next year. I don't know.
Here's another pet peeve of mine.
Yeah, go ahead.
I talked about comp picks. There's like this group of people on Twitter who want to prove that like the Seahawks have less cap space than they actually do because of they need to save for IR and they need to save. So does every other fucking team. So why do the Seahawks, when they have 30 million and everyone else has 10, they're the only ones who have 7 million left, but the Carolina Panthers can sign 2 edges, 2 guards, and all these other guys? I don't know. I just find that group. There's that group every year. You have to save room for the ERFAs. Like they don't have like. So does everyone else. It's relative.
Yeah. I hear you, and I kind of ignore all that because the reality is, if the Seahawks want to sign somebody, they can sign them. Period. There's ways for them to do that. But I think related to kind of what Dayna was talking about and this topic in general is this notion that I've even seen it in the chat for the show tonight. Oh yeah, they're not contending. They're tanking next season. I think maybe it was Jason from Over the Cap was saying, I think he's Schneider's giving Mike McDonald the year to get to know the players, and then they're getting the cap squared away, and then they're going to really go after it in 2025. And I saw a bunch of other people jump on that bandwagon. It's like, yeah, that's what they're doing. I don't think so. I strongly disagree with that perspective. This is a GM in John Schneider who, as soon as Pete Carroll was let go, said, we have been underperforming our talent level for the last couple of years, like especially for this year. And you don't go from that assessment that there's more talent here than the coach has been able to squeeze, like more production than the coach has been able to squeeze out of the talent, and say, oh yeah, we need a tank. Like if you think you've had 2 good draft classes, which I have very good reason to think, John Schneider, Burt Cole, Jody Allen, think they've had 2 very good draft classes. And I think that contributed to this notion of Pete Carroll and his staff was not doing enough with them. You don't go from that to say, okay, we're going to prove we were right by losing more games and winning fewer games with the same talent. And we're going to intentionally tank our chances to make us look like idiots for letting Pete Carroll go. There's just no way. There's no way that that's their mentality. In fact, I think it's very much much more what I was saying before, which is I think John Schneider wants to have say over how personnel and cap gets managed going forward. He wants fewer favorites. I think people forget, and this is not good, I'm just telling you the reality. It was John Schneider who didn't tell Bobby Wagner that he was cut. And like, if you look at the history of where there's been some hard feelings, whether it's KJ or Bobby, or the front office is responsible for telling someone that they're like let go, that didn't happen. John is as great of a guy as he is. He's pretty cutthroat when it comes to roster management. And Pete's the guy that brings back Robert Turbin, that recreates the relationship with Marshawn Lynch, that brings back Bobby Wagner. And I think a lot of that stuff pissed John off. Not like he doesn't want older players that are making a lot of money. He wants young players that he's drafted and that they've developed. So I just think he's assembling the roster in a way that's different than what people expected. But guys, this isn't that different than what we projected. We literally named George Fant. We literally said Leonard Williams would be great, but don't know if they're going to be able to afford him. Well, they did it. They did bring back Noah Fant. That was not something we expected. It's probably my least favorite move that they've made, not because I don't like Noah Fant, but I just don't think they need to spend money at that position. They still have the option to add Kevin Zeitler at guard. They still have the option to add, a veteran pass rusher if they want to do that. They have the option to add Tyrell Dodson, Cody Barton, Devondre Campbell, Devin White. There are some linebackers out there to be had. It's just some of the names. Isaiah Simmons is another one that's gotten some play. So I just don't know that they're that far away from what we thought was a reasonable plan. But that's none of this seems like it's pointing to tanking. I just can't. I don't see that in that building.
No, I don't think. Go ahead, Jeff.
Sorry, go ahead, Jeff. Tank, why are you signing Leonard Williams to $21 million?
Yep.
If you want to tank, that's the easiest thing. You say, okay, you don't sign Leonard Williams. Your cap is a lot cleaner in the next 2 years.
Yeah.
No, a fan you're not signing if you're going to tank. That's a position you just play a rookie at. So I think those two moves, those were their splashes in their opinion.
And you cut Geno Smith before you pay him.
Oh, yeah.
Before you pay him.
I think the thing that's confusing everyone, I think, is the inside linebacker spot. I think the fact that they didn't sign Brooks at a number that was much lower than we all thought, especially when the cap went up, I figured he'd be 12, 13 million. He was like 8.75. I think the fact that they didn't sign him and then that Queen went for pretty affordable relative to what PFF was projecting, I think that's where everyone's kind of coming with these theories because they're thrown off by that position. I think that's led to everyone's kind of uneasiness, and the market is dwindling there. It's a thin position in the draft. They don't have internal options. They handle the position weekly, having 3 guys go into free agency at the same time. I think that's really where everyone's stress level is kind of based around. And if they make one move there, I think it could really change the dynamic. But with that clear gap in there, where they need 2 guys, and where John says you don't want to go into the draft needing a guy, and they don't have a second-round pick, I think that's where a lot of the uneasiness comes from.
I think it is. It's exactly right, because it's such a glaring hole. And then when Brooks left and Queen got signed, there was a handful of people I saw. They're like, "Oh, this must mean that they're actually going to bring Bobby back. So then we'll bring Bobby back, and then we'll have this, that they're going to do that." And it was like, "Oh, okay, that won't be great." I love Bobby. I'm thrilled for where he landed. I think that's the perfect place for him. But that's not the getting younger, getting faster, getting stronger mentality. And so what's interesting to me, I think, is that there were some decent linebackers out there. There were some people to go get. And it's such, like we have said a million times, it's such a glaring hole. And you look who's left. They're fine, right? The guys that are left are fine. And I think that position in the past has been so important to Seattle. Maybe it's not now. How is that possible? Though my defensive brain doesn't understand that. But it used to be so important. We assumed maybe that they would think it was still as important, and maybe they just don't.
I think there's very little chance of that. I think it's a reasonable
I would think
question.
So. Right.
Mike McDonald, his defense was very linebacker oriented in Baltimore.
Yeah.
He talked about linebackers being a position that he's loved since he first started coaching. It might just be that Mike McDonald has a different perspective on the linebackers that were available and the money required. And while everyone's like, "Hey, they're just tanking and they're not gonna fix it all in 1 year," I don't agree with that at all. What I do believe might be true is not every part of your team is on the same timeline. So they may look at the defense and be like, this is a 2-season rebuild on defense. Like we're not going to like commit to trying to get every hole plugged in one season on defense. But if you look at the offense, from my perspective, they are one quality offensive guard away from being a pretty damn good offense. And I'm really happy that they didn't just bring back Damian Lewis. I think he was a very mediocre, like barely above average guard, and he got paid a lot of money. I'm very, very happy that I'm happier to be where we are now than if they had signed him to that contract. I would be furious if they had signed him to that contract. I'd be despondent if they had signed him to that contract. But Jonah Jackson got a big bag from the Rams. Kevin Dotson got a big bag from the Rams. So there are places that are really investing. And I think that the offense is closer to being very good than the defense is. And I think Mike McDonald might be taking it a little bit slower. And it's interesting to me a little bit looking at Mr. Dan Quinn, who was, a guy that everyone was hating the idea of him being in Seattle. And if you look at their free agent approach, it's what everyone in Seattle wants to be the Seahawks free agent approach. They get Frankie Louvu, they get a guard, they get Bobby, they get like all this stuff. And they have the second pick in the draft, and they have, blah, 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 blah. So I'm happy for Dan Quinn because I think there's a chance that team could get better pretty quickly. But I also don't believe in that as the way you build a sustainable contender. So
yeah, it's weird because they took the personnel guy from San Francisco. In San Francisco, a lot of people thought Adam Peters was like the brains behind their personnel. San Francisco's had a weird offseason. They've made some odd moves. I think and I'm wondering, like, is Adam Peters the guy like who was making all these good personnel decisions for years? It's going to be really interesting to see their draft. But yeah, there's questions. I think he's a really good GM. I think Dan was very lucky to end up with him.
Mm-hmm.
I just wonder if Schneider's just bad at free agency.
One more thing.
He might be bad at this. Like,
sorry,
he's really good at some. Oh, go ahead, Dayna. That's been linked to the Brian thing in my head. Like, maybe he just doesn't get how to do this.
One more thing about this tanking thing, too, is you have these young guys that are probably the best players on your team in their rookie contract. Are you really just going to dump an entire year of that rookie contract and not try and make your team better? It's illogical. And it drives me crazy when people are like, well, no, they're fine. They'll just bring them around next year. Why would you do that? Why would you waste that talent? It makes no sense to me. So
I think that's a great point, Dayna. Super chat here from Michael Mathis, one of our favorites. Michael says, I don't think it's an intentional tank per se, but I think that the perception of a rookie head coach and rookie offensive coordinator will have some growing pains. They won't win a Super Bowl this year. It's a transition year. 100%. Those two things are not in conflict with one another. I don't think any of us are like, oh, yeah, the Seahawks, if they just make the right moves, they're going to win the ring next year. Like, no, that's not where we are. At the same time, I don't think the Seahawks are trying to win fewer games. I just don't. And I don't think that there's even a reason to do that. Like there's not it would have been last year that you want to tank to get a high pick this year or something like that. But there's not like a player that you're just dying to get next year or the year after that would be, up there. So I strongly disagree with that perspective. Dayna, we should take some Patreon questions before we get too far into it, if you wouldn't mind starting to pull those up. If folks haven't already given the show a like, subscribe to the channel. We are closing in on 10,000 subscribers. Just click the button, subscribe. You will not regret it. Click the bell to get notified when we go live, and go to patreon.com/hawkblogger. Sign up to get access to the Slack channel right now. Conversation there is great. A lot of people updating things going on a moment by moment basis. I think it's better than Twitter. It's a good cold group of very friendly people. A lot of people making friends in there and talking Seahawks, talking Mariners, talking Kraken if you're into that. So patreon.com/hawkblogger, and you get to ask us questions like the ones Dayna is about.
All right. Let me see here. So this one is from Mark Zuck. Are the free agent moves so far backing us into a corner? No good interior lineman or interior linebacker or safety on the roster. Oh, okay. And will that force us to pick those positions instead of the best available player? Jeff.
It's not ideal, but this is a draft where you want to be picking interior offensive line. It is a really, really good group. So their linebacker is a spot I think they need to draft anyway. I didn't like that they had 3 veterans on 1-year deals last year. I think they need to get linebackers no matter what. So typically I'd say yeah, but the way the roster's built, I don't think it's an issue at all because those are the positions they need to draft and they need to build. But I really think they benefit from a veteran guard, and I think that's been a shortcoming of Schneider. Has not been able to do that. The interior line for years has been weak, and it looks as weak as it's ever looked with just Olu and Bradford and Nick Harris right now. So this is a position that I thought would be hyper-focused on with Ryan Grubb coming in, and I don't love that they're just going to go in and be like, hey, let's hope to draft something without a second-round pick, and we'll be fine. I think they need to sign a veteran, get some like physical strength that can hold up. There's so many good defensive linemen in this division. I think this has been a glaring weakness for this team build for years.
All right. This next one has no clue. I can answer this question for you, but I'll let the boys. Can we expect any more mock draft pods with you and Jeff coming up? The answer is absolutely.
Yeah,
Curious.
we'll probably do one tonight if I can convince Jeff to stay on for it.
Curious how you view the draft prospects after the combine and after the first wave of free agency, Brian.
I love that question. A couple things changed for me with the combine. One of the positions, interestingly, was tight end. There are some interesting later round prospects that, like Tip Ryman's a guy that I really love. Just big country boy, runs fast, big strong dude, blocking tight end mostly. The kid from Penn State, who I'm spacing on his name, Anthony something maybe. Anyway. A couple of those guys were interesting, could be 5th, 6th round picks. So I think there's some tight ends that you can have late in the draft. I also felt like, man, it's going to be tough not to draft a wide receiver in this draft because they are it's a fantastic class that has a little bit of everything you want. Ricky Pearsall is a guy we haven't talked about as much, but man, talk about a guy who would be such a good replacement for Tyler Lockett. I think that guy would be great. So I don't think they're going to draft a receiver. I do think some of the guys that we've already targeted have helped themselves. Byron Murphy, it's going to be pretty tough for him to be around when we're looking. And I think it's pretty unlikely now the Seahawks will go defensive tackle in the first round. When they just signed Leonard Williams, I don't think that's as much of a need. So I think offensive line is feeling like the priority. Is it possible that they're going to do what the Lions did last year, shock the world and take a off-ball linebacker? They take Jack Campbell last year. Are they going to take Junior Colson in the first round and just shock everybody because they love him that much? I don't know. But I don't feel like – I think there's some later round linebackers, but there's not a lot of guys that are just clearly guys that should start right away. So that's kind of where I'm at. But yeah, I watched a lot of the combine. I am still a believer in Michael Penix. I'm going to stick with that until I've been proven otherwise. I'm still not a believer in JJ McCarthy. Going to stick with that until proven otherwise. And can't wait to see it all unfold.
Did you, I don't know if you told them, I said that you could tell them when I wasn't here last week, but I actually found a quarterback I like. And I know that is unheard of for me, but I have a thing for Joe Milton. I'm just saying, I'll take him in the 5th round. He's 6'5". Like I'm just all
I
in.
saw you fall in Twitter love. You're like, who's
did.
this guy that just
Totally
threw that
did.
massive bomb?
Yeah, I do like that. Very, very happy about that. Okay, let's look at the next question. Let's see. This one is from Sam. Is it fair to interpret the lack of free agent signings, even if we agree there's nothing wrong with not signing a bunch of players, as a sign that they may be looking actually to rebuild this roster? If now, I think we kind of talked about that, but if
Yeah.
so, would Geno and DK trades be feasible? I've been playing with the mock drafts where they're traded, and the haul is pretty decent, and that usually includes being able to get Penix, among others. Jeff, what do you think?
I think that's a lot of fan fiction. I think this year specifically is going to be a really tough time to trade DK. Brian alluded to it earlier. This receiver group looks like an all-timer. The depth, the quality. So what you would want to trade DK is you'd want a first-round pick, and you'd want to have those kind of options. If you're not getting a first-round pick, there's no point of even entertaining the conversation. I don't know if there's going to be a crazy market because I think a lot of teams, like you'll get like a Brian Thomas who ran the crazy 40 time. He's gonna. If you compare what the receiver market has gone to, you saw Calvin Ridley got today, and you consider what a first round wide receiver like Jackson Smith and Jigba last year cost like $1.2 million on the cap. So right now, like the relative draft cost of a first round receiver is one of the best bargains in the NFL. Because of that, I don't think people are going to be looking at someone like DK, or I don't think like you saw our T Higgins trade demand a trade request the other day. There's been very little movement on that front because I think teams would rather just draft a receiver. So I think the idea of trading DK, I get what you're doing. They have so many holes that you want to build it. I don't think there's that market. And I think when we talked about Geno, and I talked about it before, I said there's no market for Geno. And look what's happened. Justin Fields doesn't seem to have a market. And it was the whole supply and demand thing. If this was last year and you were looking at trading Geno or you're looking to trade DK, I think there would have been a really, really good market. It was considered to be a weak wide receiver year. Actually got a lot of good receivers out of it, but perception-wise, it was viewed very differently. This year with Geno and DK, the way they're valued, I don't think you'd get the return you'd want. And so I think there's if you're playing with those simulators, you're wasting your time.
All right. This is from Sean. Sean wants to know, pure conjecture here, but on a scale from 1 to 10, how much do you think free agency has gone according to John Schneider's plan, Brian?
10 being exactly according to his plan, I'm assuming. Well, we already have some information that indicate it has not gone according to his plan because he got information at the combine that shocked him a little bit. He implied that there was somebody who was going to ask for or get a lot more money than he expected. And I think that person probably was Colby Parkinson. It might have been Damian Lewis, one of those two. My guess is it's Colby, to be totally honest. I thought that would have fit perfectly with Schneider. Drafted player who started to emerge, younger, should be affordable. And he was not. He got paid almost as much as Jordan Brooks on the open market. Like I think he was around $7 million a year, and Brooks was like 8.7 or something like that. So on the number scale, I would guess it's gone like 6 to 7. I think there's a few positions that have been a little bit more expensive than he expected.
All right. Brendan wants to know, given the lack of attention to linebacker position, how excited are you for the new Seahawks base quarters defense, Jeff?
They're going to get some linebackers. They're going to have someone. It's Mike McDonald's like pet position. It was just interesting that they didn't pay Jordan Brooks the money he got. I thought if you would have told us he'd sign for 8.75 or whatever he'd signed for, I think we all would have signed up for that. It's also possible that they didn't want Brooks in the building, or it's possible that Brooks wanted to leave. So I obviously know that they obviously have a plan there. It's going a little slower than we all thought, but they'll have some linebackers that they're not going to run that bandit 7 DB Pete Carroll 2010 defense. I don't know what they're going to do. It's really like the thing that's lingering over this offseason so far. So we're all in wait and see mode.
All right. So this is the one. I'm so glad it's the last question. Brian, I will tell you, you should go back and read these because there's a personal question for you on here from Nick. So, but this is the perfect question to end the Patreon questions because this has been a hot topic on Twitter. This is, how would you feel if we traded for or somehow acquired Justin Fields to sit behind Geno for a year?
If people haven't seen, I think it was Louis Riddick who tweeted this morning or yesterday or something. Just, hey, Seahawks, I've been saying it forever. Why don't you guys just go get Justin Fields? It's perfect. And I mean, Danny O'Neill's been asking about it. He's like, yeah, I would think about trading a 3rd round pick. And I'm like, what are you all smoking? Like, Justin Fields is an incredible athlete, an excited, like dynamic player, dynamic athlete, can take an offense on his back, which Geno can't do with his legs. Like the way that Justin Fields can there can be no play drawn up that's working, and Justin Fields can create something. That's something Geno's not going to be your guy to do. So he has very different skill sets. But if you want to have a repeatable, reliable offense, Justin Fields has already proven he is not your guy for that. And he is going to have to prove that and develop that skill somewhere else. And that is a really challenging skill to develop. The list of mobile, athletic quarterbacks that have had that fault, that have then overcome it and become a great mobile quarterback and someone who can play on time with precision within an offense, it is a very small percentage. And so I also hate the idea, because I want them to draft a quarterback, and I want them to draft a quarterback every year, every other year, until they find a young quarterback to take over. As much as I'm a fan of Geno, you need to be looking for the next guy. And so there's no and why are you trading picks? Like, we need to draft players. We need young players. We don't need to take a flyer on Justin Fields and hope that works out. If he gets released, I'm fine bringing him into camp. But even then, I'm personally, one of my favorite moves of this offseason was seeing Drew Lock sign somewhere else.
We need to talk
Thank
about that.
God. Like, ding dong, the witch is dead. Like, so happy that he is no longer a specter hanging over the Seahawks. And they can go get someone who does have potential to become a franchise quarterback. That's what I want. And I just, the cost, the timing, all of it does not make sense to me on Justin Fields. I'm curious if either of you feel differently.
I look at Justin Fields and I feel bad for the dude. I'm not going to kid.
Sure.
He has been in a horrible situation on a horrible team with new coordinators and coaches, and it's been a mess for him. And when I see that, you feel bad, because you know their talent is never going to be developed. This is not the place for him to be. You want him to go somewhere else. Do I think him going to a team where he needs to sit behind Geno on a team that's rebuilding and trying to get younger is going to do him any good? No, it's not at all. And so I think it would be a huge disservice to him, let alone the team. And so I feel bad for the guy. I hope he gets a second chance. Look what a second chance did for Baker Mayfield. And I think about that sometimes. He needs another chance. I don't think the situation in Seattle is the right place for him to be. You know, our head coach is not a quarterback whisperer. I don't know about Grubb. I know all you UW people do. I don't know about Grubb, but you know, it's just not the place for him to be. And it's not within the realm of what I think. And it sounds like what you guys think the team is working towards. So I hope he gets to go somewhere else. I really, really do. I hope he gets a chance to develop, but Seattle is not the spot for that.
Jeff, you feeling any different?
Yeah, Fields to me is like the scariest kind of quarterback to get from a team building perspective, because he can make spectacular plays, and he can make plays that very few other people can get, and that's the kind of stuff that can suck you in. And the worst thing you want to do is get sucked in by something like that. And he never really developed. He's not a very good passer. And with the Seahawks have so much money and so much emphasis built up in receiver, and it's clear how Ryan Grubb played at UW, and it's a real passing offense. You kind of have to completely change who you are if you're Justin Fields, and they would probably have hired the wrong coordinator. If they're kind of bringing in a Greg Roman or something, and they're trying to build what they had in Baltimore with Lamar, then maybe Justin Fields is a pretty good fit. But in this offense, and the problem with Fields also is his money situation.
Mm-hmm.
He's in the last year of his deal, and then he's got the 5th-year option, and then you have to be paying this guy. So unless you want him to be your starter, are you really going to take a 1-year flyer and then not pick up the option? What's the point of that? His contract actually makes it harder for him to be acquired. So for me, I call him like the worst kind of quarterback, because he's really talented and he's going to make you a believer. and you're going to be spend years chasing that talent when I don't know how good he is as a passer. And I think something like landing with Philadelphia or Kansas City would be good for him. But for Seattle, I think they need to get a rookie quarterback. It's been way too long. It's been pretty embarrassing. They've gone years without drafting a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
The whole Drew Lock thing has been one of the oddest, where they spend all those press conferences like begging the guy, and he signs for like $1 million 1 year, $6 million, and I'm like, really? Like, you spent all that time and you couldn't even sign him for that? So the whole thing's been weird. But I was pretty pumped when he got signed. I didn't want to do that.
I was so happy.
Like,
I was so
dude,
happy.
we had podcast 2 weeks ago. Like the whole podcast was talking about why the team loves Drew Lock. Then he signs to be Daniel Jones' backup for like no money.
I think he'll start. I think there's a decent chance he'll start.
Yeah,
I think credit to him and his agent. They picked a perfect spot. If I was a quarterback that believed that I had starting potential and wanted a real shot, that's the place to go.
So maybe if Schneider's offseason, in his mind, he might be allowed a 1 out of 10 because he didn't get Drew Lock. But
yeah, that's funny.
Oh man, I was so happy. The whole offseason's been so bizarre because they get him back after all that.
I mean, this is the thing. And Dayna, thank you for the Patreon questions. Thank you for the patrons who asked the questions. Patreon.com/hawkblogger. I think that more often than not, the best contract in free agency is the one that you don't sign. In almost all cases, you look at the guys who signed big deals just 2 years ago. The number of those guys that are no longer on their teams that have been cut, that you look at that and you're like, ew. You don't even have to look back 2 years. Look at the Seahawks last year with Draymond Jones. How many Seahawks fans feel like, yeah, that was a fantastic deal. I'm so glad we're paying him $18 million a year. I don't think there's if anyone thinks that that's a good deal, they're just flat wrong. That is a terrible return on that investment. Now, maybe he'll get better and you hope you get something, but that's not a good deal. So I think not having Drew Lock is good. I think not having Damian Lewis is good. I think potentially not having Patrick Queen and Jordan Brooks could be good. It could be good. We'll find out. Jordan Brooks could get injured again. Patrick Queen could be really tied to Roquan Smith, like everyone was saying, and without him, he won't be the same player. There's serious risks. And when you put real money, then you're stuck there for a few years and you have to potentially restart your whole roster building all over again when you make a bad free agent signing. The Seahawks have some flexibility. I think that's not the worst thing. Okay, so let's do a couple quick beats before we do a mock draft on what's next and priorities of what's left. So I'm going to read a few. So we've talked about guard. I'll just say Kevin Zeitler. This is a list. Mike Clay NFL is the handle on Twitter. I think he does a good job with this huge list. Kevin Zeitler, Greg Van Roten, Dalton Risner, Mark Lewinsky, John Feliciano, Riley Reef, Laken Tomlinson, Phil Haynes, Gabe Jackson, Trey Turner. You know, there's some knowable names in there. I don't know that most of them, other than Zeitler, are guys that are above average or clearly above average guards. On the defensive line, Eric Armstead is now available. Calais Campbell's out there. I don't know that I expect the Seahawks to make any other moves. Mario Edwards is still out there. If they do, I think it would be later, not now. At edge rusher, that's an interesting one where we wanted them to add an edge rusher. Jadeveon Clowney's out there, but we talked about him going to Carolina for a visit. Chase Young's out there. I don't think that's going to make sense. Kyle Van Noy is out there. Was with Mike McDonald in Baltimore and pretty effective. Could be more affordable. But then there's a guy, Tyus Bowser, who was also just let go today by Baltimore, was out all last year with injury, but has had like 20 sacks previously, like not one season, but has been a good pass rusher. And because he was released, he will not count in the comp pick formula. So whether or not, I think that matters a lot. Good to know that that's a guy that they could sign. You sign Jadeveon Clowney, you're canceling out 1 year comp picks for sure. There's a few other names there, Marcus Golden, but Bud Dupree, but there's a few names there. Linebacker, it is thin. Tyrell Dodson, Zach Cunningham, Cody Barton, I'm like bracing for a Cody Barton resign. Like I could see John Schneider being like, "Oh, that's my draft pick," and the coaches just didn't see his talent. He's like the new Drew Lock potentially. I hope not. Devondre Campbell's an interesting name. Devin White's a guy we've talked about. Isaiah Simmons, Devin Bush. So there's a few names there. And then safety, Justin Blackman. I know a lot of people are excited about that. I'm not sure it's realistic. Cameron Curl, Justin Simmons. Julian Blackman is realistic, I think, potentially. Justin Simmons is one that people are excited about. I'm not sure he's realistic. Jordan Fuller, Deshaun Elliott, Von Bell. Could bring back Quandre Diggs. I don't think that'll happen. Marcus May got released today. So any of those names and anything that like gets you guys excited or you're like, just do that.
Other than the guard, not really.
Mm-hmm.
The linebackers are so thin now, but I feel like they have to do something there. So, I mean, you don't want to pick 2 linebackers out of the draft, do you? Not out of this draft. That just seems crazy. I don't know. I don't know.
They've got.
Not
with the picks that they have.
No, I don't think so either. So I would love for them to pick up the guard. If they picked up a guard, I think that would be great. If it's Greg, that's even better. I think that they need to shore up that a little bit more. But at the same time, they might look at it like you do and say, hey, it's just one position and look at this draft. So, who knows with that. But I don't know. I don't think I think you're right. Simmons doesn't make sense. I'm trying to think through the list now in my head that you just said. Simmons is definitely not realistic. He's going to cost somebody a lot of money, I think. I don't know about Quandre, though. I think that there is maybe a chance he comes back, but it would be at much less than I think he would be willing to take to come back to Seattle. But you never know. This market seems to be a little heavy with safeties right now. I don't know. I think they need to get a linebacker. I think they just have to pick at least one.
Jeff, anyone that jumps out to you?
Devondre Campbell, I think, makes a lot of sense. The new linebacker coach on McDonald's staff came from Green Bay. He was Packers coach for a long time. I think that I don't know his injury situation, but a couple of years ago, he was one of the better linebacker signings in the league.
Mm-hmm.
I think as a stopgap, he would actually make a ton of sense just as a natural.
I think would not count against comp picks, Jeff. I know you're excited about that.
There you go. So Kirk Olaviadati or whatever his name is, he would know him really well. The edge rusher one is something I really thought would be a priority. I was taken back when I read today that they did extend Darrell Taylor. We don't know the terms of it. It might just be paying him a little lower than we don't know the deal. But with Nwosu, Mafe, Derek Hall, and Taylor, that's 4 edge guys. Is there room for a 5th? Like, I thought the natural move would be to walk from Taylor, bring in more of a veteran to pair up with those guys, but I can't really see the numbers working.
I think that's a question. And this is, again, if you're John Schneider and you believe in your draft picks and you're like, hey, Derek Hall didn't get used the right way and that's why he sucked last year, then maybe you look at Derek Hall. And remember, they had him graded as a top 15 player, as a first-round pick. So the personnel people really liked him. That could be a classic case of them just saying, hey, Mike McDonald's going to get so much more out of him. Maybe he will. But it could be Jeff. It could just be that they see that guy a little different than we do.
So I don't see the edge group being a priority for them. They have 4 guys under contract that are all young and are going to play. So,
yeah.
What do we think about Dodson?
I like Dodson.
Dodson's fine, right?
He's unproven. He's had half a season of really good play. Mm-hmm. He hasn't really played Mike linebacker. He's not the guy that you're going to have off ball in the same way that, like, I thought Josie Jewell would be an interesting name. Like one of these cheaper guys. He actually got paid pretty well. He almost got paid as much as Jordan Brooks got paid.
Yeah.
So there's not Devondre Campbell is like would play like the Bobby Wagner role. And generally I just think it's a little easier to draft a Will than it is to draft a Mike. And so maybe that's their plan, but we'll see. I mean, I don't think there's going to be a rush to, I mean, by the way, Eagles fans are also up in arms about what's our plan for linebacker. So we're not the only team
Mhm.
that's looking for linebackers that has not yet landed one. And let's take a moment just to celebrate how awesome it was that the Niners actually signed a linebacker, Eric Kendricks from the Chargers, or thought they did. And then at the last minute, he chose to go to the Cowboys. Aw,
That's
so
cute.
sad. Sucks for them. Yeah. The Niners, interesting with it. Losing Eric Armstead, losing Chase Young. I think they got Leonard Floyd, but they're adding some kind of mediocre defensive tackle prospect kind of guys, and Dre Greenlaw's out with Achilles, and Tayshaun Gibson has not yet been re-signed. They've got some holes. So
We got Patrick O'Connell. What else could we need?
I like Patrick O'Connell.
I do too, but not.
But not this much. All right. Are we ready to do a mock draft or so?
Sure.
Can you do it, Jeff?
Yeah, I'd say my one fear after all the combine is I think Troy Fautanu might have played himself out of Seattle.
Yeah, I think that's a fair thing to be concerned about. We will find out. So, all right, I'm going to hopefully share my screen. All right, you guys here. How many rounds we want to do? You want to do like a 4-round, 5-round, 7-round?
Let's do 5.
5 rounds.
Yeah, we have a lot of players to add.
Yeah, so Jeff, you and I are going to have to at some point do a couple of these where we go like specifically like, okay, if we want this to be what we're trying to do, what would we do? Like we have to do a couple themed drafts. But tonight, let's just start with playing it straight. Let's see. Let's see what's going on here. First few picks. I've not done this for the last week or so I don't know what's changed. Interesting. For a while, they were not drafting quarterbacks with the first 3 picks. That's now happening, at least in this draft. Your fear of Marvin Harrison going to the Cardinals is happening here.
Yeah.
This actually is pretty plausible. 3 quarterbacks and then 3 receivers.
Yeah.
I think that could definitely happen.
I don't think the Falcons are taking a quarterback. That's for sure.
Falcons aren't going to be looking at quarterback now, right? So that's going to push that down.
Yeah, so that'd be a trade up for someone.
Maybe New York. Do you think New York will still draft? I mean, that's what they've said. Like signing Drew Lock does not mean we're not going to draft a quarterback.
I think if somebody wants to trade, they're going to have to trade up to that 5 spot.
And is it going to be Minnesota?
Minnesota's going to move up for someone.
Yeah, you'd think that, right? So let's keep going. All right, so we are on the clock, folks. So McCarthy's gone, Alt, Fuaga, Brock Bowers, Dallas Turner, Jared Verse, Byron Murphy. So like these are all guys that we've talked about, and they're gone. In this case, Fautano's available. I do feel like if you trade back from here, you're very unlikely to get him.
Yeah, so Fautano's really rose up in this mock draft simulator. He was like 29 or something.
He was.
Yeah.
He definitely was.
He had a great combine.
So I assume we're going to try to trade back, yes?
Yeah.
Oh, but see, the only thing they're offering is 42, and then we just wouldn't do that.
Oh, that's a trade up, though. Oh, that's their offering time.
That's what they're offering. I mean, we could try to go to, like, Eagles has been a popular one for us. I think there's another one I saw recently that looked interesting. I can't remember which one it was. Maybe the Packers? I don't know. So, like, 25. See, they're just not interested. So, like, this is not letting us do these trades this year. It's very annoying.
Yeah, you can force it.
Yeah, we could force it, but like we let's not do it this time. Maybe we'll do it another time. Okay, so let's go with drafting a player. Are we taking the offensive lineman?
I would want Troy Fant out of here.
Yeah, I think so too. You're not going to be able to trade back, then take one of the bigger needs we have.
Done.
This is such a big gap now, though.
That's the thing. We're just going to watch everybody come off the board. This is why I just cannot. It will drive me crazy.
He doesn't trade back.
I mean, and
I think the only way he doesn't trade back is if he drafts a quarterback in the first round.
Oh my God, I'd kill him.
I wouldn't.
God, I'd kill him. Sorry.
So you got your offensive lineman. You could Spencer Rattler has definitely been moving up some draft boards. If you want to take a quarterback,
He's short. I was all about him watching his pro day tape. And then he's not. He's 6 foot tall. He's 6 feet tall. It's not I'm a heightist now.
You are. You totally are. I'm trying to see. He's 6'1" here is what they
Yeah,
say.
they lie. He's just 6 feet. Russell Wilson was 6 feet, remember?
That's yeah. Cam Kitchens at safety. Interesting name.
God, you
Roll
cannot have a second round pick.
there.
It gets really thin really fast, guys. Like your linebacker options. Let's take a look at linebacker. I mean, this is where, at least in these drafts, this is where it gets pretty fast.
Yeah, the mock has changed a lot. Edgerrin Cooper's gone now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can't just.
I don't think you can force this. Where would you guys? So we obviously linebacker will be a priority. You could go safety. You could go.
Oh, God, I hate this draft already.
That's what I'm saying, man. It's like
we have to get a second round pick. I mean, there's just no two ways about it.
Yeah, I'd rather just give up the 2 3s and move into the second round. Honestly.
Yep.
Those don't do it, at least in this thing.
I know.
It's not enough.
Crazy.
So what do you do? Would you take Rattler? Would you take?
I'd probably take. Is Jeremiah Trotter like? I don't know if he's even.
Yeah, he's there.
He's there.
He's small though. 230.
6 feet, 230. Yeah. 21. No, he's a baby.
Comes from NFL bloodline. I don't know this Austin Booker guy. He's an edge. 6'6". Jeez, dude.
I think we need to start this draft and trade back.
Okay. Well, let's finish this one. We'll go a little faster.
Fine.
What
we just take Rattler here?
No. No. Oh, okay.
We're gonna do it. Just piss off Dayna. We just drafted a short quarterback.
We have another pick here. We can take Trotter here or Kitchens.
What do you want?
Take the linebacker.
Linebacker done.
His dad was great linebacker.
Yeah.
Right. You never know.
So then we're gonna get to 118.
Cooper Beebe.
Leonard Taylor did not have a good combine.
No,
he's fallen down. There's Cooper Beebe, who we like, but who knows if the Seahawks like him.
K-State. Yeah, no.
They don't really need a swing tackle anymore.
No, that was a good pickup today.
Now, see, I'd rather have Jordan Travis at this pick than. How tall is he? I got to see for Dana's sake. Yeah, he's 6'1" too, Dayna.
No, I want Joe Milton. He's the only quarterback I want in this draft. The rest of them can go away.
I think
maybe Ben Sinnott.
Oh yeah,
might be too early for. We can probably go on the next.
I think there's some pretty good tight ends you can get a little bit later.
The kid out of K-State is supposed to be pretty good. Yeah.
Which do you have a preference? Anything?
Cooper Beebe out of K-State is supposed to be
stack
pretty
the
good.
Guards.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
This is a Jeff Bryan.
As unlikely as I think it is, the Seahawks would do that. I like it.
True.
All right, there's our last pick. See?
Oh, there's our guy. Zach Zenner's still falling here too.
Right. That's another guy that I would be happy to take. There's Joe Milton.
I know. He's the perfect sit on the bench for a year guy. Come on.
I feel like you'd really want to try to double dip at linebacker, but Theo Johnson. I think
we might not have a choice.
Johnson.
There will be no others.
Yeah, there's no. Oh God, it is so bad. All right, done.
I hated that draft.
This is the problem. This is the problem. Is if you don't trade back, you're in a rough spot. I mean,
well, Cooper Beebe was like the equivalent of a second rounder, but
I don't
our
think
defense is just untouched.
All right, can we do another?
Yeah. We need to. I can't end on that. I feel
he feels dirty. He needs to
start forcing trades.
All right, we will force a trade for you. let's make sure it's realistic. But
Yeah. We're not gonna cheat the system.
Okay. All right. We'll just go turbo. Here we go. Wait, it's not doing turbo. All right.
Brock Bowers.
Yep, Brock Bowers is available. Would you trade back if he was sitting there?
Yes.
I would too. And look at all the trade offers. So maybe look at that.
Okay, here we go.
We got some good options.
Maybe they
here.
want Brock Bowers.
What do they have? They have 59. What does Dallas have? 56. I'd rather 24 and 56.
Yeah, let's see if we can get that.
24 and 56. Give them 16. Oh,
all right, let's do it.
Wow.
Jesus. Well, let's take a little bit more.
174.
Let's be greedy.
I mean, why not? Let's do it. I don't think we're going to actually get to that round anyway, but let's do it. Done. All right. Sweet.
Are they taking Bowers?
They're taking Quinyon Mitchell.
Oh, that's what you trade up for.
All right. So we did lose Fautanu by doing that and Brock Bowers.
Yeah. I think Fautanu might go in the top 10.
Mm.
So Graham Barton's an interesting name. This is like some people have him as the best interior lineman in this draft. He actually played tackle, but a lot of people think he's a center. Obviously, Jackson Powers Johnson is a center, but some people think he can play guard as well. But I've heard a lot about Barton. Let me just see what we got here. Yeah. So decent dude there. You've got Johnny Newton, who's a good interior guy. I mean, this is the thing. I mean, you start looking. Oh, Peyton Wilson.
Yeah.
Do you do this? Do people know about Peyton Wilson? I mean, this guy is an athletic freak. I like gasped when I watched him run in the combine.
Yeah, the problem with him is he's got medicals, so
he does have an injury history. 6'4" that can just fly though. Look at that coverage grade, dude. I mean, I don't know. Like, there are more interior linemen to get later in this draft than there are linebackers.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing. Where is Junior Colson ranked now?
Let me look. Linebackers. Colson 67. So we will potentially have a shot at him.
Yeah, same Ledger Cooper.
So you could make the case here to go quarterback. Bo Nix.
They have Penix ranked.
Penix,
Just stop it.
I'm just saying.
You're not picking a quarterback in the first round.
You could go edge. You could go Latu.
Way.
He is one of the most projectable edge rushers in this class.
Penix.
Okay, so let's say we were doing this logically, which we know John Schneider doesn't traditionally do. Who is the best player available in the positions that we need?
Johnny Newton.
I mean, if you're John Schneider, his history is first round is edge, like defensive edge rushers and tackles. That's his most prominent position in the first round. He's a wide receiver guy in the second round. He's never taken one in the first.
So he did last year.
What's that? He did. That's right. That was the first time he took one with Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Yeah, we've wanted him to take interior alignment in the first for years. I don't think that's his MO at all.
Yeah. He is
not in this
never taken a linebacker an off-ball linebacker in the first round. Certainly never taken a quarterback in the first round. I mean, Chop Robinson, who's way down here, I still think is a guy that could push into the first round.
Yeah.
And Latu are two guys I think Schneider would potentially pick. I don't know. What would you do, Dayna? What would you do, Jeff?
I think Brian, I think you should pick. You always have us pick. You need to pick.
All right, Jeff, what'd you say?
I said I'd take Penix.
You take Penix.
Are you? I'm muting myself because I'm just going to get mad.
Okay, I am going to take Peyton Wilson because I want to see how this plays out.
All right, let's see how this goes.
All right, interesting. Brandon Fisk is an absolute athletic freak. He's very undersized for a defense. He weighed in like 280 something, I thought.
Yeah.
But absolutely
He had
insane.
a freak performance. Yeah.
Combine performance. I think he's pretty unrefined as a player, so he's more just an athlete than he is like a technician. But we just got our linebacker, Arrow.
Yeah.
Fantastic name. Also had a fantastic combine. Interesting player. Actually, I think he's very much, to me, screams a John Schneider kind of player.
Yeah, I do too.
But you get into the guards here. Christian Hayes, you got Jalen McMillan at receiver, Junior Colson. You could draft 2 linebackers. Should we do that and see what the draft looks like?
It'll be the opposite.
Crazy?
Look at Jeff is like,
oh, T'Vondre Sweat.
Right?
Oh.
Do you trade back again? No, not to 77. That's too far.
It would be very hard for me not to take T'Vondre Sweat.
Yeah, I would do that. I will do that. All right, let's do that. I think that guy's a difference maker. I'm excited about the way this is coming together.
It's all about the trade.
All right, 70 absolutely is.
It's too bad we can't get Colson to fall here, but
yeah, we got a guy though. We got we got our
Peyton Wilson. So
I still don't know enough about Gabriel Murphy. I'm gonna have to watch more of his tape. Redshirt junior, so a little bit younger, hopefully.
Are there any guards here?
Lacking physical gifts, not interested.
No.
There are. Let's. Oh, Brendan Rice. We could take Jerry Rice's kid and just taunt the fuck out of 49ers fans. I mean, that by itself feels interesting.
Mason McCormick is interesting.
Mason McCormick's a guy I really have started to like, but I still feel like
Zach Zinter
later,
Yeah.
You could look at. See, I think
if you take 2 defensive spots.
Yeah, if you don't take a quarterback in the first 2 rounds, I think you're waiting till like the 4th or the 5th. You don't need tackle. You could take tight end, although I feel like that's reaching at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, if I'm really looking at the roster, receiver is what I go here.
Yeah, I think so too.
Because Tyler Lockett is almost certainly on his last year.
Yes.
And I think for the value, I think that you take a receiver.
Just take Jerry Rice. Take Brendan Rice. Just do it. Just do it.
I will do it. I just want to see what other wide receivers are available.
No, I'm just teasing.
Malachi Corey's interesting one. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's fuck with the 49ers fans. I love it. Okay. And then maybe safety.
Yeah, maybe this is where you look at safety.
Kitchens.
I mean, Kitchens is an interesting dude. He had a down year. 21 years old. Let's do that. I kind of like the way this is coming together. Take Kitchens. And then this is our last pick. So we only did 4 rounds.
We got to go interior O-line here.
No, you don't. You're going to go pick my quarterback is what you're going to.
No. We're leaving him up. Well, you could take Jordan Travis.
Yeah.
You could take Cedric Gray, which wouldn't be a bad choice. Another linebacker.
Or my Zach Zinter.
Christian Boyd's an interesting. There's your tight end. He I don't know why they have him down here so far. I think Rosenberg is a great guy to get.
I go in the 2nd round. Zach Zinter.
So you take Zinter here.
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. You
need some Michigan kick.
Yes. All right.
Yeah.
Done. Okay. Zinter. They're not gonna like that pick for us, but I like Zinter. I think he's a good option. So they're gonna hate this draft. They fucking hate this draft.
I feel way better about this draft.
I don't hate this draft.
No, I feel much better.
I didn't hate Sweat so much. I think that was good.
Because on their list he's in the 70s or whatever. But
yeah. I don't know how I feel about the linebacker in the first round, but I really
I feel like we're missing a blue chip talent, but
I've got to put Jen's Jen Maz's perspective
This
on
is
this.
all garbage, Jen.
Not a fan. Jen has always got strong takes on the draft.
Hey, we could have taken Penix.
No. Why?
Why are you so down on Penix?
No, I'm not down on Penix. I'm down on a quarterback in the first round.
Why?
Because I kind of agree with a friend of mine who has this rule. If you draft a quarterback in the first round, they start that year. If you are going to waste your first round pick on a quarterback, then they have to be start worthy. If not, go find a blue chipper or some other position of need. If you want just a backup quarterback or someone to sit behind for a year, you do not take them in the first round. Now, I know everyone's going to Patrick Mahomes me, but I'm just saying it's kind of not a bad rule of thumb, especially on a team that has so many holes. If you were just a quarterback away, well, then move your ass up and get one of the good ones. But if you're going to take them in the first round, they really should start.
You're not wrong.
Jordan Love did pretty well sitting out.
I know, but that was because Aaron Rodgers is an ass. He could have started.
The problem is, how long can they keep kicking this can down the road?
Yeah.
And
I agree.
Their 16th pick, this not the best spot to be in. Obviously, you want to be in the top 10 or whatever. Like ideally last year, they would have been able to draft a quarterback. But if they're better and they're coached better, and next year they're drafting 18, 19, it's going to get harder every year. And then you're going to be left sort of like Minnesota is now, where you kind of have nothing going, or where Denver is now. And you want to end up in one of those bleak holes. And I think if a quarterback's there that you think is good, I think you got to take him.
Agreed. But then could that be why then he's hoarding all these compensatory picks for next year so he can move up?
It's possible that I think that'd be a poor strategy.
I agree.
Here's the other piece, just not to berate this compensatory pick conversation, but this Jim Nagy said late round picks this year are not going to be good because NIL in college has meant that a lot of kids that would have been drafted later went back to college to get paid. Mm-hmm. So it's affecting the later rounds, the depth in the draft. There is no reason that will change next year or the year after that. Fair. So if that's the case, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round picks are going to dramatically reduce in value. And I think that even it could affect the trade value charts where you package up 2 third-round picks to try to move up to get a second, and people are going to be like, no. It's going to be like an exponential value chart curve. So I think the compensatory picks, I like them more than Jeff, but I think that the 5th, 6th round picks that we're getting are not going to be that valuable. Jen Maz definitely agrees with you. At least she's certainly not a fan of Penix. I won't go back into that. I have a different perspective, but
I think he's fine. It has nothing to do with him for me at all.
It's just taking the position.
Yeah, it's just the first round. Yeah, if you can get him, if you can move back and take him in the top of the second round, do it. I'm down with that. But that first round pick, I've just seen Seattle blow it so many times, right? And so I don't know, unless they really plan on starting them, is quarterback what you do there? I don't know if I agree with that.
I will say there's a comment here, and then we'll let you guys go, that I agree with from Pre-Fight Donut. Says Penix's upside is the best player in the whole draft. And the point there is I would say his ROI is potentially the highest because he could be the best quarterback in this draft. And people think I'm crazy for saying that, but from a arm talent throwing perspective, he's got as good or better arm than anybody in this draft, anybody in the last few drafts. I think he's right there with CJ Stroud or better as a passer. He's got other things about him that make him a risk. Mm-hmm. That means that you could potentially get a true franchise quarterback into the first round, maybe even into the second round. And if you're talking about really getting a top 5 talent at that level, it's like Lamar Jackson, crazy deal, 32 overall pick, when he was taken. Mm-hmm. There's some guys that just get slept on. So he might totally fail for all the reasons people are saying he could fail, but his upside's super, super high. All right, folks, I've kept everyone long enough, especially sick Jeff and, storm warning Dayna. So thank you both for joining. At Real Jeff Simmons on Twitter, at Dayna OG on Twitter. I'm Brian Nemhauser. You can find me on Twitter at Hawk Blogger. You can find us on YouTube at Real Hawk Talk and wherever you get your podcasts. please give the show a like, give the show a 5-star rating, and subscribe to the channel. And go to patreon.com/hawkblogger, sign up, get access to the Slack channel right now, where the conversation will continue even after the show. Take care, everybody. Have a great night, and keep an eye out. There's more news. There will be more podcasts. So we will see you again real soon. Take care.